Today I'm going to share with you some field notes from how I'm using AI to help me support my deep work, effectively building my own version of Jarvis, at least a 0.1 version. Iron Man can do some really cool things, but he has a lot of support around him. Pepper Potts and Jarvis in particular really seem to provide a space in which other parts of his life can be managed or at least protected, and he is able to go into the lab and be Iron Man or do super cool things and yet still be a super high performance executive and hopefully great community member and ultimately, hopefully a great family member. Batman also has his key resource, Alfred, as well as his Batcave and super cool bat tools that allow him to be Batman and still run this other rich life as well. I'm hoping that this is a part of helping you build some components of that help you take on doing real good in the world and living really rich lives. Looks like Superman's the only one who can do it all himself, so if you're Superman, go for it. We're going to talk today a little bit about the AI tools. I'll share with you some of the tools that I'm using in specific areas of my life that you could get started with today. This is moving rapidly, so it'll change very quickly. I'm going to talk about how I tied it into email. There's an easy way that you can do it within the system. I needed some more nuances because my email is a little complicated. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the game changer was not those two things together. It seemed like yet another surface to check. The game changer was taking AI plus email and then making it time aware of my time, aware of cognitive high performance time, aware of deep work time, aware of when I needed to protect time and when I was available for collaboration. This really only worked if I also shared with it what mattered to me. What are the key relationships that matter to me? What are the projects that I'm participating in and moving forward? And how am I thinking about this all together? And ultimately, you'll learn from some honest misses that happened for me as well. The interface was limited in using conversations only. And so there's some aspects of returning some kind of full control that we'll talk about at the very end. So that's what we're going to cover today. Some AI tools that I'm using to tie it to the email, to make it time aware, help it understand what matters most to me, and then some kind of way to maintain full control. And this has truly helped me to level up. I truly feel in the last 2.5 weeks that I have had the ability to more effectively protect my deep time and yet be still responsible for appropriate outreach, collaboration, communication, and monitoring critical systems. AI is going to move really fast. This is July 2026. There are going to be rapid changes in tools. The ones that I think are going to happen for me most effectively are the ones where more and more local processing is going to be possible, which will change some of the privacy constraints. Claude Code is a great space for me, which is part of my deep work practice. Claude Cowork is a space that I had not been using as much, but really realized that it's another wonderful surface that is different from those, and I could use it as this front-end interface for the Jarvis/Pepper Potts that I was working to build. This incredibly intelligent assistant that would help me triage when something urgent was happening and what I needed to break deep work for and what I needed to stay focused on and when I could appropriately communicate and when I could consistently follow up. So letting me go into the lab and just work on these Iron Man-like projects. Claude Cowork is a separate space, has scheduled tasks. It can allow you to do these, and it has great connectors that you can use. You can use similar skill building tools, plugins, and skill files and project files and give it access in local environments for it to run with contextual awareness. So that's the tool that I'm currently using. It's really important as you're thinking about these connectors, what's appropriate for you to share and what isn't. Thinking about this upfront really matters because you're going to give it access to potentially some information that's really close and important to what you're doing. There are aspects of my life in medicine and in other work that I'm doing, which is incredibly sensitive, and those remain inviolate. They stay in a system that is not accessed by others. It's accessed by me on fully encrypted systems. The ones that I'm talking to you about today are ones in which I have control over. There is safety rails in place where I'm doing as much local processing as I can. I'm using systems in which they have solid privacy policies, and I'm able to maintain confidentiality without it being shared for other kinds of training data. You should make sure that you know the settings, know the terms and conditions, and know the constraints of your workplace environments, the emails that you may be receiving, and that you're able to choose the appropriate tools for that. There are local setup environments that are a little bit more complicated, a little bit less off the shelf, that might be more appropriate for what you're doing, or that this shouldn't be used. So please make sure that you think about that upfront beforehand. It really matters. Then if you have an environment in which you can set it up, as I have, setting the appropriate constraints that it's not shared outside, that you're operating locally as much as possible, then I think that you can start to use tools like this. Tying it into email is pretty straightforward. There are connectors inside for Gmail, for Outlook, and for other email systems that allow it to interact using MCP, that Model Context Protocol, that allows these large language models to discover and understand how to interface with effectively the application programming interfaces, allowing it to interact with your email. I needed a little more. I'm interested and involved in a lot of different projects. And in order to maintain effective and appropriate communication, I use clear communication channels for this. It's an important part of simplifying your life and yet still maintaining effective high performance within different projects. We'll get into that in another session. But what that effectively means is that I have a number of email clients and I need them to come into a single system that I can effectively and smoothly operate on without having to manage multiple different email inboxes. Sure, Gmail's great. You can go and switch accounts. You can have different project accounts for different areas, but you have to go into each one of these different clients. Totally didn't work for clear communication channels. It'll quickly become overwhelming. Really enjoyed the keyboard approach for Superhuman. Super delighted by their ability to help people think about what matters for them to respond and whatnot. But this multiple tabs that you have to go through in order to triage your real whole life managing multiple projects was untenable. Instead, there's an amazing system out there if you're on a Mac that is incredibly smooth. It is super high performance. I've featured this before in creating a system that I could easily triage thousands of emails in an hour. It has just the right level of features that will allow you to maintain multiple clear communication channels and yet rapidly and effectively filter, process those, and share them outside. And it uses standard protocols. Bjorn, who developed it, has done just usual IMAP and then managing files locally. Huck and Catch had created an initial MCP interface to MailMate, and I extended it here. So if you're going to try what I'm doing with MailMate, then you would need to use this server. This is a surgical tool for managing your email, for helping the system to understand what is there locally, and then how it can move things effectively between it, and then importantly, how to draft emails that appear in the MailMate interface for you to be able to send files for. If you're going to do bulk stuff, it's probably worth using one of the other connectors for this, but I really like this approach. Multiple email inboxes that are appropriate for using in this kind of way, local files that it can read, index. I even use the Spotlight index for this, and then highly effective local tools with the local MCP access for it to use an interface in a surgical way with my mail and the mail program. I don't think AI is good enough to send out responses, but I like it having it draft sort of the background of have I missed any emails from this person I'm about to communicate with? What was the last communications we had? And then draft an email that I completely rewrite, but in a rapid, fast, markdown-based way. So using MailMate and using MailMate MCP, use the forked version for now until I work with Huck and Catch to get it back into their system, provides a powerful tool that lets it manage like whole life email locally. Okay, great. So you've got your AI tool and it's able to interact with your email. Now what? You want it to be time aware. Why do you want it to be time aware? And the reason, I think, is because you want to be appropriately responsive to really important communications. You don't want to let those lie. Sometimes you might be working in teams and organizations where it matters that there are responses within an hour or two, right? So that you can get people unblocked. If you need more real time, I highly recommend that you use some kind of push modality where the team's able to call you and you step out and help them get unstuck. If minutes matter, that's the right approach. That or some kind of paging or a similar clear communication channel that we use in medicine. But having an email that's time aware is super powerful, right? In the morning, I would prefer not to have to check my email, but dive into the work that I'd planned during my shutdown ritual yesterday. Right? That's my super high performance time. I would love to know that I can do that, but it stresses me out if I feel that I might miss something urgent. It's not just email here. Yes, monitoring and maintaining any serious errors on websites that I am, helping to support. I want to know about those as well. So having email that's time aware in that way could be really helpful. And then knowing when I'm open for collaboration and communication, when my best communication times are, and then also when I'm shutting down would be really helpful to know if there's any urgent email that I should respond to, or can it just check and then let me relax? That changes things for me. But this truly only works if it has some sense of what matters to you. Gmail has been, trying to understand what's important or not and presenting that to you. And it's very good. Google's great at machine learning, right? I think they've been applying that even without AI to understand the differences between those. But it still wasn't the interface that I wanted to see. It could get me distracted and not focused on, say, I'm pushing something really urgent and important that week, or is it working on solving an important problem? Then the other things that Google thinks are important are actually secondary priorities and distractions for me at that moment. But if you are like me and you score high on this conscientious personality trait, it stresses you out, even when you've got this clear prioritization. So having it understand what matters to you is really important. And then if it understands what your key relationships are, if it understands what projects you're currently working on and how they're prioritized, all of a sudden it totally unlocks an ability to effectively triage for you. I think this is the minimum set for that. So what exactly am I talking about with this time awareness and what matters? Well, I've been thinking a lot about this in MakeTimeFlow because, yeah, sure, most people think of it as I'm thinking about timers or tasking for that matter. But in truth, I have been looking for something that helps me live a rich life, right? So let me do important things, difficult things, and still helps me use my human mind inside my human body with my human heart and live this really rich, full life, doing sustainably my best work. Sure, with intense commitment, but with optimal effort. And I need some guidance to do that because otherwise I tend to go all in and get super stressed out when I'm not able to do it all. This changes everything for me when it helps me think through and keep in mind what matters. For most people, what they don't understand is that the stuff that you'll do when you first onboard the platform, the foundations, are so important, right? You declare your key relationships using strict narrative form, but with a little bit of structure, can radically transform how the system helps you align your actions with what matters most to you. And now it helps the AI tools align how I am interrupted or how interruptible I am, but based on that as well. It also aligns with my values and some of the strengths that are there. And then importantly, it aligns deeply with these success stories, right? These narrative plans full of richness. Yes, performance goals, but also learning goals, aspirations, directions, the things that we are so powerful and so moved by. It understands my weekly goals. It understands my quarterly goals inside my current adventure, and it understands my long-term goal, my 5-year plans and longer, and in my vision. And it understands and knows the context of that, in addition to understanding everything that's happening for me in time. The LLMs are not so great at time calculations. I'm sure they're going to get better at it. Part of the MCP server for MakeTimeFlow was to help do much better time grounding for them. So I like to think about how many workdays I have left, what the weekends are like, what the end of the quarter, how far away it is, and other salient moments for me. And so the MakeTimeFlow MCP server does a whole bunch of that, which we don't need to do in the platform, but we do it just for the AI agents, which is ground them in time and then help them do time calculations. I've got a lot going on this week. This is part of the Nathan Grant demo account. So Nathan had a lot going on. How does it find time for him? And sure, the default systems will go and just try to block out stuff for you, but I want it to be high performant time. When I have intense meetings, there should be some follow-on time where I need to close the loops there. So it should know that I am going to not schedule immediately after, but then schedule time for follow-up with high performance breaks on either side in order to do critical responses to specific emails. So time calculations are far more nuanced if they're going to be really effective for you. And it's helpful for the system. That's sort of the initial approaches of what we're trying to do. Sure, there's a task list here. You totally can do a Tasks.md file or priorities.md file and have the system get this going without using MakeTimeFlow. It's been a tremendously wonderful sort of existential question about what exactly does the MakeTimeFlow tool offer besides just doing local files. And you'll see in the skills file that I give you when you want to use the MCP server, it encourages the system to consider using just local files if you're not fully using the aspects within the MakeTimeFlow system for it. And I think you can totally do that. If you want to get started like the barista dude is on Twitter, you can totally get far by just having a Tasks.md file and a priorities.md file in your local system and use that to get started with if you don't want to dive into the MakeTimeFlow way yet. What it does is it will help you do effective time grounding, time calculations, and it'll do it with the awareness of not just sort of those higher level things, what's on your calendar or calendars that you've linked in here, but it'll also see what you've declared as actionable. And as you know, in the MakeTimeFlow system, there's this lens of what am I going to get done today? What am I hoping to get done this week? And then it will also understand the hierarchy of how you've structured your tasks. So all of that is what I mean by what's happening in my day, what does it fit into, what are the projects that I'm working on, and then this live view is now shared fully with your AI system. So that's what I'm using. So the AI ties into my email program, MailMate, using the MailMate MCP system. It's really good at reading what's come in. It knows how to move things between the boxes. It knows how to draft messages and have them come up for me. It knows how to read previous emails and search for emails from that previous system. And it understands what the key relationships are for those people, thanks to the integration inside the relationships context. And it knows what projects I'm working on, and it knows what time I have, and it understands the principles of cognitive high performance. So what does it look like for me today? And I'll show you what the scheduled tasks are. At 7 a.m., I have my time guardian. So this is the one that truly knows what's happening, looks into all the critical systems. Yes, it checks my email. Yes, it checks the critical monitoring systems for me. No, it doesn't check messages yet. No, it doesn't check WhatsApp yet. They'll be coming later. But these alone have been transformative. It looks to see if there's anything that should interrupt deep work time. And if there isn't, it just says, hey, Nareth, there's nothing happening today. Go ahead and do your deep work time. I'll see you at 12:30. If there are critical things that I need to respond to, whether those are something related to an issue that's going on the web server or immediate responses that I should do for VIP or project-based things, then it surfaces those for me and gives me some surrounding context or drafts the emails for me. At 12:30, runs the system that says, are there responses that Nareth should do today for this? And if so, how much time does he need for those? Blocks off the appropriate amount of time based on what's available in my schedule, and then drafts emails for me in terms of responses. It's an incredibly helpful time that I do. I think of it as my pepper time, really, because often, I'm sure like you, once you have been doing really deep work, there's often this little bit of a long tail, and making sure that you're wanting to like really finishing that off matters. And there have been times when I have let all communication sort of slide, focused on moving that immediate thing forward. But this is the time where Pepper comes in, sits me down and says, you have to go through these. You have 30 minutes. Here's the way you're going to do it quickly. Go. Right? So this Pepper time. Salt and pepper I like as well. It's a little spicy. And then 4:30 is when it really helps me do my VIP close. So it just scans for any VIP responses that I need to do. Otherwise it tells me, nope, nothing for me. And my shutdown ritual is much more simplified. I don't even need to open my email anymore as part of it. I can be thinking about what am I preparing for my deep work slots in the following day, and then reflecting on what went well, what were challenges, and how I'm going to do different things there, and then preparing for a wonderful evening or weekend. I've been using it for a while now, and there truly have been some honest misses. Yeah, sure, the Mail MCP server took a little bit of work, but I think it's the search is working quite well. The drafting of the emails is still, it does very generic sort of responses, but it's enough to get started, and using the really easy markdown editing in the MailMate editor is super fantastic for it. So it's very straightforward, and it has massively improved the reliability of my communication and outreach. What hasn't worked as well, though, I thought that, having the system be able to start intentional time for me, I thought that maybe the agent would say good luck and then start a timer for me, or I'd interact with it that way. The truth is that the global shortcut key inside MakeTimeFlow is just so fast and has more powers in terms of how I can quickly think about triaging or adding some quick thoughts to the work. So I tend to just use it there, and it's a super fast way to just start timers as I think about it. So when I'm doing 5-minute planning timers, getting something out of my head, it's a super fast way to do it, and then I can immediately return back into flow. The other one that's been a big surprise for me, I don't know if it has for you, both of the interfaces. Claude Code is much easier because, in general, I'm working in this deep pair programming way that I talked about in the AI productivity paradox. I've got the Claude Code sort of working in a conversation. I'm staying in the space, I'm reviewing, the source code using Git. And so it's easily identifying the differences. In Claude Cowork, this is a lot harder. It's generating files. If you're tied it into strategic thinking, sort of inspired by Gary Tan's G-Stack, or you're using it for outreach management, what's there along with your other tasks, it modifies a lot of files. It does show you them in the artifact view, which I think was fantastic the first time I saw it, but it's really hard for it to understand everything that it's touched. And if you're living real lives, it's probably going to touch a number of things for you a number of times of the day. The emails are easy to do because I have this flag in the MCP where it cannot send email from me. It can only draft it, and then I see it in the interface. So that's one of the steps. But the other one was that if it's modifying my schedule or suggesting or modifying tasks, I want to see it. And that's where having the real-time updating inside MakeTimeFlow has been really powerful. I feel like I've still got a full control surface that's there. This is my time. This is what I'm I'm planning to spend my time on. This is what my prioritizations are like. It matters that I know how to do that. It matters that I can do it. And I love having it actually operate in real time because I can actually feel like I'm collaborating on that. So that's been a big important area for me. Totally, if you have a Tasks.md file or a priorities.md file, I'm sure you can just load those up and then use a system that's at least able to refresh it when it makes changes to that. That totally can work for you as well. So no reason you have to do that. But interesting to think about other interfaces that can help you more effectively manage having these deep conversations while it makes modifications and having a surface in which you can maintain full control. Okay, so that's the whole thing right now. How I'm thinking about this Jarvis 0.1. Powerful AI tools connected to your email system, plus making it time aware and what matters. The fundamental system that lets it finally do these critical roles at simple times of the day for you. And then some kind of surface where you maintain control, whether that's using elegant markdown editors alone for it or managing it just within the interface and keeping it very simple. All right, so those are field notes. I'll update these as I learn more about it. I see this as sort of these emerging intelligence toolkits. Right now I'm using this as sort of this entrepreneur, high performance executive role that I'm trying to grow into. I'll continue to think about specific intelligence toolkits with different friends and partners who are working with. If this is helpful to you, if you need more information, if you'd like more details, let me know. Thanks, bye.